We are about to launch our 27th season, which just is frightening when I think about it, but also very exciting to think that this community has really embraced the human race as its own. We spend a lot of time reading pieces, and then when you put them together into a group of 5, you want some sort of cohesion to it so that they sort of make sense. And oddly enough, there's a theme to the season that I will say that I didn't really come to until it was all done and I looked at it and went, oh, this season is really about families in change. We open with a fairly new play by Stephen Dietz called Becky's New Car.
It's quite charming, and Stephen Dietz takes you on a ride with Becky, and she finds herself in the middle of a midlife crisis of sorts. She's been living the same life with the same husband and the same family and the same job, and she's feeling a little stuck. And then something happens in an instant which takes her on an excursion that she wasn't expecting, that isn't necessarily right or wrong, but sort of is, and things spin a little out of control.
Next show is something that I've wanted to do for a number of years, particularly on the Loft stage, and that's the musical Fiddler on the Roof. At the heart of this story, it really, again, it's a family drama. It's about trying to maintain those traditions of your family, but not get in the way of the happiness of your children. And that's the struggle that Tevye has in this story. And I thought, what a great idea to tell that story in a really intimate space like the Loft Theater. And we've talked about how we can scale the orchestra down to a traditional klezmer sound, and that those musicians will be part of the cast, that they really will be part of the Anatevka community. Starting in January, we kick off the new year with a piece of theater that in its time won just about every award there was to win in terms of the theater world, and that's Harvey Fierstein's Torch Song Trilogy.
Torch Song Trilogy is a play that we have wanted to do for a long time. In its initial writing, it was 3 individual one-acts. And it wasn't until years after the production of that 3rd one-act that they put it together and titled it Torch Song Trilogy. Each act tackles a different issue. I mean, certainly the whole anonymous sex and sexual freedom in Act 1 for the individual. Act 2 is all about relationships. And then we move into Act 3, where we meet his mother. And we meet Arnold, who is a little bit more mature now, and who has, as a result of his own personal history, decided to reach out and wants to adopt an at-risk gay teen. And ultimately it says that this is a family issue. It's about family. It's about, your children, your parents, love.
Next up is a piece by John Robin Bates called Other Desert Cities. When I saw this show, on Broadway in New York, and I went, wow, we have to do this piece. At the gist of it is a daughter who has come home for Christmas to visit her family in Palm Springs and their glorious home. It's a very conservative family, and she's written a sort of a family tell-all book.
I read this play and I laughed and I cried, and normally when I read a play, I don't have an outward external response. Kevin called me up and he said, I'd really like you to look at this play. And I'd heard about it on Broadway, but I hadn't seen it. And I read it, and I was on a plane at the time, and I was cracking up so much that people around me were asking me what I was reading. And then I just started bawling. And I don't want to give the impression that it's a sad play, because it's not, but it's so moving. The most fun time I have in a theater is when I'm laughing a ton, and I'm also moved to think about something in a different way. And I think this play does that, and it calls under question some things that we all have thought about and that we all can identify with.
The final show of the season actually brings us back to our discussion of the musical theater workshop, because this piece that we're doing is a new musical called Play It by Heart, developed through our musical theater process. Music and lyrics, songs by David Spangler and Jerry Taylor, and book by Brian Yorkey, who also wrote the book to Next to Normal, which Tony Award winning, Pulitzer Prize winning. It'll be great to have Brian back here working with us again. This is a musical about the country music industry, and it's about a family that grew up in country music, and how, you know, mother to daughter to granddaughter, how that has changed, how the music industry changes, and how it's affected the family. I haven't always been what I would say a country music fan, but this show has sort of struck a chord with me closer than probably a lot of shows have. And I don't know, and I think it's the storyline. I think that the music is really well written. When you get down to the heart and soul of a really good country music, they tell a story, and these songs all do that very well.